Hi, welcome to An Abundance of Books. My name is Julia, and today we're doing my wrap-up for both June and July. June was a weird month for me, life-wise, content-wise, so I didn't end up posting a wrap-up. So we're going to combine them now. I read 6 things in June and 9 things in July. And I think we're going to order these best to worst, or clump them best to worst, just so you get all the good stuff out of the way. I read Just Haven't Met You Yet by Sophie Cousens, and this book is so good. I feel like everybody needs to read it. Not everybody, but like if you're a romance reader, I think this is the perfect thing. It feels very in line with the Emily Henrys for me. It's about this woman who is working for a company and they sent her on a trip to Jersey, which is where her parents met and fell in love, and she's going to like document the story basically. And she meets a bunch of quirky townsfolk along the way and has a meet cute. And it's just so much fun. It's the perfect rom-com. It bridges the gap between romance and women's fiction for me. This is very much a coming-of-age story. Like it's the woman's story. It's not about her in a couple. Don't ask me what her name is. I have no idea. Emma? But this is a single POV where a single POV makes sense. This is very much her story. I don't care what the dude is thinking. It's so lovely and so charming, and I think about it all the time, and I highly recommend it. My other big 5-star is Barbarian Alien by Ruby Dixon. I love this series so much. It's got so much going on with it. It's really cute. I'm not going to explain it well. These are very smutty books, so know that going in, but I find them incredibly charming, such easy palette cleansers. I flew through this one. If you have any interest in Ice Planet Barbarians, pick it up. It will not disappoint you. My only other 5-star is Unmasking Autism by Devon. This is something for me that I've been thinking about, but I think that it's a really useful resource. It's definitely directed toward you as a person with autism or thinking that you might have autism, so it's aimed in a much more like personal direction rather than informational. But there's a lot of really interesting memoir stuff, both from the author and a bunch of people that he's interviewed. It's really well done if you have any interest in it. Sure, there are things that I would change with the book, but with a nonfiction like this, I just toss it a 5-star and move on. Moving to 4 stars, we have Patricia Wants to Cuddle by Samantha Allen. I absolutely love this book. I talked about it in my ARC video. It is somehow a magical combination of The Bachelor and true crime and horror and Bigfoot. It's such a fun time. I think it's really well written. The author previous to this has only written nonfiction, and I think that she did a great job transitioning. And I love this book. I had to only give it 4 stars just because everything didn't quite come together. The Bachelor stuff and the horror stuff are very much different, but both parts are excellent and I highly recommend it. I'm flying through these today. I'm really proud of myself. Next up is Delilah Green Doesn't Care by Ashley Herring Blake. I really enjoyed this one, though not as much as other people did. I think that having read this right after I read Just Haven't Met You Yet, it was very evident that this should have been single POV. It should have been Delilah's story about going back home and connecting with her sister and like maybe a little romance on the side. But they threw in her love interest Claire's perspective too, and it was fine, but like this wasn't Claire's story. Claire did some stuff, but like it didn't really matter. I wanted this to be Delilah's story. That being said, all of the elements were great. I totally understand why this is a favorite of the year for so many people. It just left a little something to be desired for me, but I still gave it 4 stars. Book Lovers by Emily Henry, I feel pretty similarly about. There's so much in this book that I love and like I want to give it a 5-star, but I just couldn't. This is the story of a woman who is self-described as like the other woman in a Hallmark movie, the one who the handsome man has to dump in order to be with the whatever she is, a bakery owner, carpenter, pig farmer, you know, that genre. It's very much poking fun at Hallmark tropes in a very fun way, but I found that this is probably just me, but it didn't live up to the promise of the premise, which is the thing Mara says, and I can't not say it now. If you haven't watched books like Whoa, you should do that. But the big draw for me with this is they had a bucket list of things that they wanted to do on vacation. It's the main character and her sister. It has sisterly banter, love it. But they had a top 10 list, and that just sort of got abandoned at a certain point, and I was really hoping we were gonna followed through on that. So there were just a couple of things, a couple of pacing things. But whatever Emily Henry is doing, she's doing it right. A Prayer for the Crown Shy by Becky Chambers is the second in the Monk and the Robot series. This one I ended up enjoying a lot more than the first. It has a lot of sci-fi discussions, but in a very cool, not cool, but like low-key way. And it's all set in this utopian future where everyone is queer and we're all environmentalists, and it's just really cool. I would like to pitch it as cozy sci-fi if that's something you're interested in. They're also super short novellas, so help you on that Goodreads goal. Side note, at the beginning of the year I set my Goodreads goal to 50 and I have surpassed that. So now I have finally switched it to 100 and I'm getting scared again. I don't like seeing that number of how many books. I'm ahead, but still, I don't like the feeling. Mistakes Were Made by Meryl Wilsner. This is a sapphic romance I also talked about in my ARC video, and I really loved it. It's so different from Meryl Wilsner's first thing, but I feel like we just get each other. Like, we could write anything and I'm still vibing with it. This is a best friend's mom sapphic romance, and it is very heavy on the smut, so know that going in. It is mostly romance. There's very little plot in it. I feel like if you want your characters to have full fleshed out lives, this is not the book for you, but if you're down for a good time, this is a great time. There is a little bit of the third act conflict that I didn't like, but it is very different from any third act conflict you've seen before, so yay. I also read The Princess Beard by Kevin Hearne and Delilah S. Dawson. Finally, I feel like I've been talking about this book so much. I'm so glad to have finally read it, and I really enjoyed it. The number one thing with this book is the audiobook. The narrator is the best narrator I have ever heard. He is flipping through so many voices all the time, and they're all distinct, and they give the characters so much more personality than they would have if you were just reading it with your eyeballs. This book is also humor, and it's just joke after joke after joke. Like, they really do maintain it through the whole thing, which is really hard to do. It is tiring sometimes, but I think you understand your expectations when going into a book like this. And if they can pull off a Charlie the Unicorn reference, then I'm down. These authors have also written so much. I don't know if you can see. This page is just full. This is just everything that they've written. It's so much. So I'm gonna have to look into it and see if anything else appeals to me. This book does have 2 previous books in the series, but they can definitely all be read as standalones. There's definitely some references in here to the first book that I picked up what you were putting down. I realized just now that I didn't put this book on my Goodreads, so I'm not sure what I rated it. I'm holding it right now, which means I think I gave it 4 stars. That seems too high now, but it's, let's stick with it. It's The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager. I ended up really enjoying this one. There's a lot that's really compelling about it. Of course, it has all of the standard Riley Sager nonsense that you hate, like the woman is an alcoholic, because of course she is. Like, I can't tell if it's a joke at this point. It feels like he's in on the joke or he's completely oblivious. But this pulled off some really good stuff. It's told in a before and after way, which I'm not always a fan of, but they managed to pull off some stuff in here that I really wasn't anticipating. And I really don't want to talk about it until you've read it, because I feel like anything with this book is a spoiler. Other than that, she's an alcoholic, because of course she is. I think some people will hate this, but I am not one of those people. So probably 4 stars. I was gasping when I read this book. I was on the floor yelling at my husband because he didn't understand the ramifications of what had just happened. I said before picking this up that Riley Sager may not be great, but he's great for a quick read, and that was absolutely true in this case. I'm gonna keep picking him up. I might hate myself for it, but I'm gonna do it. I have no 3 stars, so we can go on to 2. I'll do the highest of the 2s because I had to check to see what I actually ended up rating this. It is Below Zero by Hazelwood. This is the last book in the novella trilogy, but I've only read 2 of them so far. I also read Stuck With You this month, and I have sort of the same opinion about both They're fine. They sort of drop the ball in a lot of ways. They're very short, so it's not enough time to get invested with the characters. And the characters all seem very similar. Like, it's a trilogy of novellas and the 3 women are friends and they show up in the 3rd book and I didn't even realize that these were the same people. Like, that's how flat they all are. I definitely enjoyed Below Zero more than Stuck With You. Stuck With You I kind of hated, but Below Zero I didn't hate. I just wish it had done something, anything. I have book lovers in this stack. Have I not talked to you about book lovers? Am I losing my mind? It's on my list, so I must have read it. Sorry, I already mentioned this. This is another 4-star book. Wait, did I talk about this and just not hold up the book? I'm very tired. I did talk about this. Anyway, I own it. Let's all pretend that didn't happen and talk about Insomnia by Sarah Pinborough. 2 stars. Oh boy, this ain't it. Trying to get into the swing of this the same way with Behind Her Eyes, where like there's a long period where nothing really happens and it's very much a domestic thriller. But like in this one, nothing happens and it's boring. Like, the characters aren't interesting. They're like having a bunch of family drama, but you don't really care. There's the one thing that you end up really caring about that's never addressed about the daughter. For people who have read it, that never gets resolved. But I'm so disappointed with this for the reveal. Just the concept. I don't hate it in concept. I hate it a lot more in not execution. I don't know how to say what I want to say so that the people who have read it understand me, but also I don't spoil it. I can't think of it. There was a way to do this story with this twist well. I just don't think that this is what this is. It's about this woman who feels like she's going crazy approaching her 40th birthday, much in the same way that her mother did, and that's it. We're kind of just figuring that out, but not, and living our daily lives. I think I'm prepared to call it that Sarah Pinborough is a one-hit wonder for me. Then we've got Hide by Kiersten White. This was bad. I give it 2 stars. Honestly, it should probably be a 1 star just for like the quality of it. It's just not very good. It feels very YA. I think this would have worked much better if it was YA, but then you would have had to justify why none of the characters have parents. The big problem with this is that it's not scary. The horror isn't done very well, and the justification for what is happening I didn't really enjoy. The writing I didn't enjoy. The characters I didn't enjoy. Like, there's not a lot to enjoy here, and the atmosphere didn't really get me either. I never got a sense of the amusement park. This is a book about a bunch of strangers who are brought to this amusement park to play a game of hide and seek, and the last one standing wins a bunch of money. But obviously there's something more sinister going on. This book is sort of universally hated, and I don't want to dogpile on it too much, but I definitely don't recommend it. And the last book that I read was The Lying Game by Ruth Ware. 1 star. I read this book in June. Like, it's a while, but it's not that long for a thriller, and I couldn't tell you exactly what the reveal was. I know a bunch of stuff happened related to this thing, but like who exactly did what when? No idea. This is another one where I have to mention the promise of the premise. It's called The Lying Game, and it's introduced pretty early on that it's about these girls in a boarding school who play the lying game, and you just lie all the time, and there's like a point system, but not really. The point is like just to lie all the time, and like that could have been expanded on so much more. There could have been like intricacies with it, or reveals on reveals. Like, it's such a good premise, and it doesn't live up to it at all. It's extremely monotonous. There's a lot of talk about like walking across this one field. They walk across it so many times, and it's so exhausting for them, so it's exhausting for me. It just didn't have any of the charm, and the mystery was dumb. I wouldn't say it was predictable, but that can be a good thing or a bad thing. Definitely not Ruth Ware's best. All right, hopefully I've done this right this time, and we've talked about all 15 books that I read for the past 2 months. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope that you got a recommendation out of this, or a disrecommendation. I still count those as a win. Anytime we can reduce our TBRs is a good thing. I hope that you're having a lovely day, and I will see you soon.